Wow, you guys had a pretty big year. Well, I guess 2022 was really the big year. We're in 2023 now. But you guys came out with a splash of a new peripheral for sim racing that, I've seen polarizing reviews. I've seen the people who are really positive about it. I've seen the people who are maybe a little bit more on the negative side about it. How, in your experience, how has the reception of this force feedback pedal actually been?
Yeah, it has been great. I think that it kind of went in phases. So when we teased it, people kind of guessed that it will be a pedal, and everyone was obviously waiting for a passive pedal because there were no active pedals at that time. So yeah, then people got like a little bit excited that Simucube is doing a pedal. So I don't know, maybe they expected that we can do something different there. But then when we released it and showed it to the world, and everyone was like, "Whoa, what is that?" And that is so cool. And people were selling their kidneys.
Right. All of a sudden, the Facebook Facebook marketplace blew up with everyone selling their pedals.
Yeah. And it was great to see that. We did a little live stream back then when we published and launched it. Then, so it was great to kind of browse through the comments that people are so excited about it and so on. Then actually in the Sim Racing Expo, the first 2 days, I think, where people got to test it, they were very excited, and on the evening of the second day or third day, we announced the price, and at that point we get a little bit of a backslash that how can it be so expensive, and I think that we kind of slightly messed up the expectations management, that what the price level will be for this product. So people were kind of expecting a little bit like lower price products, so that we kind of we stepped in some kind of line there. But I think that actually if you think that what combines the people who don't like the product, it's that they have not tried it. So we had like several people on the third or fourth day of the Sim Racing Expo that when they knew the price, they actually came. I remember actually like two different people who came there, and they both said that it cannot be like expensive. I will never pay this much for like $9,000 €9,000 for pedals that I will never pay so much. And then I discussed with him and he said that it's way too much. And then I discussed that you basically only need the brake pedal first, and then you can kind of see that if you can actually try it. If you buy the one pedal, you can try it as a brake or a gas pedal. Then you don't, because it's the same pedal. So yeah, and then he was still kind of agitated, really, that it's so. He just came to us and said that it's too expensive and he will never buy it. That was his kind of agenda there. And then I saw the same guy like 2 hours later, and then I asked him, have you tried it now? Because he hadn't yet tried it. And then he said that, yeah, I actually tried it. Yeah, I mean, you can only buy one pedal. It's not
rationalizing.
Maybe. It might be possible. so basically, when people try it, they kind of like understand that what the whole thing is about. So I think that is the challenge for us, that we need to kind of figure out that how we can kind of communicate a little bit better than we're doing now, so that people understand that what it kind of makes possible, what's the like reason and the benefits of the active pedal, like, really.
Well, so in my eyes,
but that said, we have already sold all of them so far.
Right. In my eyes, it's normal technology cadence when it comes to price, right? So my dad was one of the first people to ever get a DVD player in the house. And that DVD player was like $600 when he bought it. You can now go to Walmart and get one for like $30, and it does the exact same thing. So it's the natural progression of technology where something new comes out. It's really expensive to manufacture and create, and obviously to purchase. But over time, the process gets a little bit optimized, the parts become a little bit cheaper, the price does come down eventually. But if you ever want to be that first one in on any technology, you're always going to pay that massive premium for being the first one. And I'm sure that you guys going to Sim Racing Expo 2023 are expecting some people to start talking about their own versions of active pedals, and you're going to have competitors in the market, and that's naturally going to bring things back to equilibrium again. But it's just kind of one of those things that you have to, as a technology guy, you have to go, I want to be first. I know I'm going to pay a lot of money, but I'm going to have it first. And it's going to be one of those things that's unique to me, unique to my kit, whatever. So I don't know if necessarily you stepped on a landmine there, other than just being the first one is just kind of, that's the territory you have to walk, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And we have discussed with on Discord and like in social media about the price and so on. And it seems that people now kind of understand that why it is so expensive, because that the parts are just so expensive inside. So I mean, there's definitely still room for kind of improvement there. So for example, right now the pedal can be like throttle, clutch, and brake, and that is something that can be optimized and so on. And do you really need the 170 kilos of like force there?
Right.
There's a way that the price could be brought down still. So,
but the interesting thing that I noticed about the launch is that it kind of firmly puts Simucube within a bracket in terms of your brand. So the Simucube Direct Drive has been the king of direct drive for a long time. It's been the pinnacle. That is what people would save for, like a diehard sim racer. Most of the diehard sim racers I know are saving for Simucubes rather than Fanatec's in from my experience. And by Simucube coming out first, the first force feedback pedal, you kind of firmly place yourselves as the premium innovators. Like, these are the guys that are doing it best. They're doing it first. Okay, yeah, they are like the most expensive, but it's for a reason. And when you come out with such an innovative product and you do it before anybody else, it kind of backs up that brand identity of you essentially being
I agree with that.
Innovators in the game.
100%.
Yeah, I think that is what we do, and that's what we want to be. I mean, if you mentioned Fanatec, I mean they are great at in volume production, and they do it in China and so on. So they have like the mass productionist, and now I think Acetec Propel, I don't know much about what they're doing, but I mean it looks like they are kind of targeting the same market, that they will do the same stuff as everyone else has done, and then they like shooting for the mass production and so on, and that is completely fine, and obviously that is what sim racing also needs, that to kind of have the products available. But yeah, I mean sim racing also needs the kind of innovators, and that is what we do at our core. Like, we have not always been a sim racing company, and so we kind of have the history there to kind of innovate and so on. We had a lot of crazy stuff in the past.
So,
we'll probably do it in the future.
Yeah. So tell us how you came to be an innovator. Like, take us right back to the beginning. Have you always been an innovator? Have you always been an inventor? I've had a little look through your LinkedIn profile. I can see that engineering is your background. Tell us, like, what did you study at school? And then when you left, was it always, I'm going to go and make a gaming hardware company? Or
actually, I'm just the CEO here. So I've been in this at Granite Devices, which is the company name, basically. So I've been here like 5 years now. Time flies fast. So yeah, well, shortly about me first, and I can talk about Simucube or Granite Device. I have kind of personally been like, I don't know, inventor, but like very interested in technology and electronics and so on. So I studied our office is very near, but there's a technical university right there, and like many of our people come from directly from there. So it's the area where we are is very technology based. It's like Silicon Valley of Finland, almost. So yeah, for me it has been like lifelong dream to always do something with electronics, and I almost burned down the parents' house when I was doing things as a kid, like very young. So yeah, but yeah, now I was in the technology. It was basically a startup that didn't end very well. So I was there doing like designing like electronics and automation and mechanic designing, and then project managing, and eventually leading the design and assembly lines there. But it was a very, very small company. So after that kind of ended, then I moved here to Granite Devices, and now we are kind of trying to figure out that how we can kind of how we can kind of like be happy at work. I mean, that is kind of the ultimate goal of Granite Devices. And there's just so many like innovative people here, and that kind of brings us to the innovation. That is, if we don't do innovations, we are not happy, and so on. Right. So that is what we want to be as a company. But yeah, short history of Granite Devices. We or Tero Kontkanen, who's the founder of Granite Devices, founded this originally in 2007. It was like a side hustle, more or less, and he basically used almost 10 years to do the technology and the motor control and the servo motor control. He just he was working in another company and just like doing the firmware and software, doing that and testing motors and so on. So that is where our technological background comes from, that kind of like massive knowledge of servo motors. At some point, like maybe 6 years ago, Tero started to hire actually hire people to do the business. And at that point, the products were servo motor controllers for industrial use. So basically like robots and stuff. There's like testing robots that has 18 motor controllers that control all different motors. So the point was that the whole thing is very versatile. It's like Swiss Army knife of motor control. So it's like a small PCB that can handle like any kind of motor in certain power range and so on. So yeah, the versatility was also that like very important point there. And then we also did some very interesting like customer project at that time. For example, there has been an electric airplane with our motor controllers that some like actual human being from Finnair, like test pilot of Finnair actually flew. So, and that was like a while ago. So that was before any like electric bikes or anything like that. Which actually have done a project for electric bike as well. So then we have done like electric pipettes that you use in medical things when you measure the liquids, and there's like very, very tiny little motor and even tinier motor control. So the history of like this very like vast range of things that we have done at Granite Devices, and and that kind of gives us very big like knowledge of that field, like basically motors and the control.
It's interesting that you say, trying to find happiness at work in a lot of your engineers. So innovating and inventing things seems to be a massive passion. Do you find that in the world of sim racing, it is harder to innovate than maybe some other industries? Because, I mean, wheelbases, pedals, shifters, what else is there really? And, how far can you realistically go before you're like, well, I guess this is kind of the end road. This is the end game. We've gone as far as we can with sim racing. Do you find that in the world of sim racing, it is hard to innovate and change things to a certain extent?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit, but there is still room for improvement and like room for innovation. We already have. We will show you later. But
there's definitely places to go. But you also you made an interesting point about how your pedals, you may have stepped on a landmine because of the pricing. So sim racing is going through a little bit of a, I don't want to say growing pains, but it kind of feels like growing pains, where now there's kind of the low end market where it's like consumer entry level with Thrustmaster, Logitech, some of the Fanatec stuff. There's the mid range in there, and then now it seems like there's getting to be this ultra high end, like your wheel costs $2,000, and it's just getting to a point where it's almost difficult as a sim racer that already has decent gear to go anywhere else with their gear. So do you feel that the sim racing market will possibly, I guess for lack of a better term, chill out a little bit in the pricing? And because it just keeps going up and up and up. And honestly, as a consumer, me, someone who, does the checkbook, I want the prices to come down a little bit. on some of these premium
Yeah.
products.
Yeah, but I think that actually now that we have seen some of the new players come, I mean, what typically happens in the market is obvious that the prices will go down, as you mentioned earlier, and there will be new companies and new kind of competitors and players there on the market. So yeah, I think that will definitely affect the prices as well, and there will be more like, for consumers it's great because there will be more like offering some different kind of products, and they like a little bit different kind of products. So yeah, when there are multiple companies doing the same stuff, it like brings the price down naturally. But yeah, then there's like the brands who kind of how you want to position in that market. We cannot really go low end because we would suck there. We don't know how to make some stuff cheap. So that is, we don't know how to do it. Our manufacturing is in Northern Europe, so we don't have that kind of like, yeah, so that's not for us. But yeah, if you think, for example, the origin story of Simucube, I mean, as I mentioned, grinding devices was still doing like industrial stuff and so on. So jumping to sim racing wasn't like our like number one plan, how what we want to be in 5 years or something like that. We didn't even dream about that like 5 years before we launched the Simucube 1. But yeah, it was very kind of interesting story because at that time when Simucube 1 was launched, before that there was the OSW project, the Open Sim Wheel thing that was open source code and so on. So from our perspective, like grind device perspective, it looked like we had the actually Argon was one of our product back then. That was the industrial motor controller designed to use like in industrial use and so on. And at some point some guy asked Tero that he had bought a massive servo motor, and then he put a wheel there and he said, I need to drive this now, so please help me with the software. And Tero was like, okay. And then Tero helped them with the software, and he didn't hear anything back like for months or even for, I don't know, it might be a little longer time, but at that some point he checked from the web store like why there is so many people buying just one servo controller, because the servo controller was designed so that there are like many of them. That is where the kind of benefit came, that you have like multiple of them in the same machine, and it's easier to control all the axes at the same software and so on. So that's the kind of little bit like a point of the. And then he was looking at why is there people just buying one of them? It doesn't make sense. And then he kind of dove deeper into that and find out that there's actually got this kind of like underground community on sim racing that has formed around that product, and people are trying to bought some motors and trying to kind of get it working and figuring out the cabling and stuff like that. And there was a lot of like safety issues and stuff like that with the software, because it wasn't like it was an open, source project that someone had just done. So I think that was kind of the root for the whole Simucube, and that is why the community is so important to us. And now we had to just launch the Discord and so on, and be kind of trying to like get that back in. Before, back in the days, it was our forum, the Grind Devices forum, that was very popular among the sim racers when we were still kind of trying to figure it out how it's done. Because at that time there was no other option. If you wanted a direct drive, then that was basically the only shot that you got, that how you can get one. You just had to buy the motor from somewhere. It's not that some consumer product that you can just order from, anyway, it takes some knowledge and so on. And then Grind Device kind of decided to help a little bit, and we did the Indiegogo campaign with Simucube 1. That was like a motherboard, like PCB still, and then there was our own like servo motor controller that plugs into that motherboard. But it's still like DIY product that you still need to kind of know how to use and so on. So it was not easy to use. So, and after that, we kind of saw the potential there and see that the market is really kind of starting to grow, because at that point it was like very, very expensive gaming controller. There was like no certain way that we could make sure that it would ever sell anything. But yeah, then we decided that we will do the Simucube 2, which is the like plug and play product that you can just like put in and use. So yeah, that's like the short story of how Simucube was kind of founded.
That's pretty interesting.
And at some point we just decided, like a couple of years back, we decided that we will go all in sim racing. We kind of tried to juggle the industrial side and the sim racing side, and we're a small company, so we kind of had to decide that which one we want to go for, or do we want to fail both. So it was a hard choice for us, because I mean we were an industrial company, and all the people we have hired were from the industrial side, so we didn't know anything about consumer market really. Now we had, after that we have like hired like marketing people and sales people who are like focused on that, and even on the R&D side we have now people who are focused on making the stuff look nice and so on, which is not something you kind of expect. It's not the first thing on the industrial side.
So. In an industry kind of usage, they don't care, as long as it works, it's fine. But when you bolt on something onto a sim rig, you're like, oh, I want my sim rig to look pretty too. Like, that's kind of interesting that you say that.
But it's still something that you can see from our product. If you look Simucube 2, I mean, it looks industrial. It's not something that has the RGB LEDs and stuff like that, like gamer product. It's not that. And also that the active pedal, it's functional, and it looks like clean and industrial, and that is like that looks awesome. And we're happy with it.
One of the biggest problems I have with the pedals at the moment is just the sheer size, because I actually have a desk mounted setup. So I don't have a lot of room between the wall and where my pedals have to mount. So the Simucube stuff just wouldn't even fit in my rig. I'd have to create a new rig somewhere else in order to put it on there. Do you think that version 2, version 3, something like that will just compact it up a little bit and make it a little bit more, I guess, size friendly? I don't know what I'm looking for there.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. We actually, that is like a drawback of the design, and it is something that is kind of hard to, I mean, you can use a different ways to kind of, or different geometries, how you can kind of do it. One of the major things that creates that, like why it's so like big, it's because we need to have the motor on the same axis as the linear axis is, so it needs to be directed there. One option could be that it's like turned into the side, but then you would have a belt or something there, and that's not good. Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes the software, and it creates drawbacks. So that is why we kind of need to have it there. And if we want to have the 170 or 200 kilos of the pedal force that you kind of need, then it means that the motor needs to be relatively big. I mean, it's like 10 centimeters or something like that, the motor itself. So, but there's still ways how the design can be changed and optimized for that use as well. But I do see that it was a like known risk that not all people can use that because of the length. So.
How did the pedal come about? So, I mean, I'm still kind of recovering a little bit here from your origin story about how people took these servos and then just like made them sim racing equipment, and then you were like, oh, an alternative use for our equipment. Let's just completely pivot the whole company in that direction. Like that's I don't want to let that one slide. That's nuts. That is the most incredible origin story and the most true to life example of listening to your customer that I've ever heard. Like, it's absolutely nuts. Was there a similar story for the pedal?
I could add to the previous story that at that point we had a lot of like R&D hours for the sim racing. I mean, we had to do all the firmware for the and there was right now it's a lot easier because the kind of groundwork is already done with the game developers and so on. So the games have like relatively good support now for the force feedback things. Back then, the only force feedback that was used was like which Logitech, like plastic wheels and so on, where it was like rumble and really feedback. So there was some all kinds of like safety issues and stuff like that, because the game could just, if you drive into the wall, they just like try to get the maximum like feeling from the plastic wheel, that like say it just booms the force to the full, and then your wheel starts spinning and so on. So there were a lot of kind of that groundwork that we had to do, because we were not first, but like one of the first dirt type manufacturer at that time. So there's a lot of like software things that we had to do a lot of work. So yeah, it wasn't like easy just to pivot to sim racing and so on. But yeah, for the pedals, it was like it was an idea that we had for a long time. We have very like we are a small company, so we have like limited resources on where we focus and so on. And so at some point and also Simucube 2 was designed to be a product that will last, that you can use for a very long time. So we kind of wanted to make sure that it has all the features and so on, and we still develop after we can buy it and so on. So that took a lot of the resources still when it was launched and so on. So it has been developed a lot after that as well. But yeah, the pedal idea was something that we thought for a very long time, and we knew that it wouldn't be a very cheap product, so it would be a kind of massive gamble, and it still is. We haven't actually delivered any of the products yet, I think. So yeah, I'm obviously we have tested on like Sim Racing Expo and so on, in different places on US as well, but nobody has, or very few people have it in their home. So. But yeah, it was an idea that we have had for a long time, and we just weren't sure that if we should do it or not.
The interesting thing about the pedal is that in the same way as the Simucube 2 is designed to last a long time, the pedal could go through years of development once a sim racer has it, right? So let's say I bought the pedal, the way it works and feels now could be completely different to how it works and feels in 2 years' time, because of the ability to upgrade the firmware. I remember we were speaking at the expo about how you can input profiles from certain cars. So if you're racing a Mazda, the brake pedal would feel softer than if you're racing a Formula car. So you could get that level of immersion experience. And you were talking about the little spikes in resistance at certain braking percentages, so that you can essentially train yourself to trail brake. So you get to, if you wanted to, right, at this corner, you need to brake to 80%. And then by the time you hit the apex, you want to be at about 30%. And that needs to be a nice linear curve or whatever it is. You can like get these little like spikes in resistance. So you get the feedback through your foot to train yourself to do this trail braking. And I kind of thought, well, there's got to be like a professional application to that. Like, I mean, I don't know, but I imagine even like the Mercedes, McLaren, like, I bet they're like real world simulator, that the Formula One teams I'm talking about, I bet their simulators don't have that capability.
Is for sure. I mean, that is one like, I don't know, like business area that we could talk consider, and we are actually, as you might expect, we have been kind of discussing with a lot of different players around the motorsports as well. So yeah, there are like a lot of ways that the idea with the pedal was that the hardware is as versatile and like as good as possible. So now it kind of links to the price, but now the hardware is as like, I mean, we have found like tiny little things that we could improve on it, but yeah, we are very happy with the hardware, and now that we have very versatile hardware, we can do a lot of stuff with the softwares, and that is something that like our software developers will still do the whole year basically to kind of maximize that and do like we have just scratched the surface on the software side. So there's a lot of like potential on very different things on the software.
Yeah, so I've just had an idea, right? And like your software, I think when we last spoke, you said that you could imagine a place where people would be able to swap profiles. So somebody would be like, oh, I've got a really good profile for a Formula 3 car. Let me send you the file and you can load it in and have it. Right. in theory, could people create profiles for like the Heusenfeld sprints and the ultimates, or like I don't know, like the Logitech pedals, or like the TLCMs if you're a Thrustmaster guy, or the V3s. So in theory, like, could you see like a forum on Race Department where it's like, oh, do you really like the V3s? Well, you could recreate them on Simucube and test them, or you know, you could if somebody. I'm just imagining if I had the Simucube pedal and a friend of mine was like, oh, I want to get into sim racing. Which pedal set should I get? I'm like, well, try them all. Try all of them on this rig. Like with this single pedal, you can test like 8 different kind of pedals and then tell me which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, why not? It is any pedal you want. We actually, I don't know if I told you at Germany, but we had a company party where we on some emulator we had Sega Rally Championship from 1995, and at that we drove that with the active pedal.
Nice.
If you think what kind of pedals the arcade thing had at that point, it's like there were no force feedback. Let's say, basically.
Like a spring.
Yeah, it can be true. Any pedal we want and more.
That's very cool. And something that I've noticed about Simucube is that, you know, we were talking earlier about other players coming to the market. So like, you know, you got Moser and Asetek and even Simagic now. I know Simagic have been around for a little bit longer, but they're definitely kind of pushing more now. But they seem to have like quite a lot of products. Like Asetek, for example, blew my mind at the expo because obviously the year before they had like the Invicta pedal, I think, just on a shelf on somebody else's booth. Like that was their only presence. Then obviously last year they were massive. As in December just gone, they were absolutely enormous. And they had like a full range of stuff ready to go. Now, Simucube seems to be a little bit more, I don't know, maybe considered perhaps. So you've got your wheelbases and then you have your active pedal. And then given that you have your own wheelbase, you only have one steering wheel, the Taco, which by the way is probably one of the best looking wheels, I think, on the market. It looks pretty sexy. But there's only one. And I mean, I'm making an assumption here, but in my head, the base probably takes a lot more R&D than the wheel. So I suppose my question is, why aren't there more wheels?
I mean, that is... Yeah, it took like, I would say maybe like, I don't know, 2 years to get the active pedal done when we decided that we were finally going to like start it. And if we had done wheels alongside, then it would have taken longer. So it is all about prioritization, and it's about the focus and what we want to do and what we want to achieve, because the active pedal we are not the first company who have tried to do it. I mean, I have talked to like different company people that they have said that they have tried it as well. And when I heard the story at the Sim Racing Expo, that when we launched the product, then one CEO said that, hey, that should be our product. We have tried to do that for a long time and we kind of didn't get it done. So it was not easy. It like really took all the expertise we had in this. I mean, the geometry and the hardware is very simple. You have the motor and the axis and the pivot point. It's very, very, very simple. I mean, anyone can do that. The hard part is in the firmware, how to make it feel so that you don't feel it, basically. So that you don't feel the motor, you don't feel like it feels like what you say in the software, so that the hardware doesn't like feel anything. So that was the hard part, and we had people software engineers who are like very, very good on what they do and so on. That it still took them a long time, and actually after the Germany we have still like almost completely changed the algorithms that control the motor, and it is even still a lot better than what it was in the Sim Racing Expo. So yeah, it wasn't an easy project to do that, but yeah, on our like product portfolio, we do see that as kind of limitation for us. It would be nice to kind of offer the customers the kind of, so that they could rely on one brand, so that they know that when they buy a wheel, it will be Simucube quality and so on. So we are working towards that. So in the future, we are trying to make both happen, so we can still do the innovations, and the innovations will always come first. And then when we have like more time and resources, then we can do like the simpler products.
The peripherals, right? And is your ethos has always been, well, from a consumer perspective, has always been very open. So your wheelbase, because you didn't have a wheel, obviously had to be compatible with other wheel manufacturers, right? Is that if you came out with your own range of, let's say, 4 or 5 wheels, would your ethos be to keep it open so that you could still use other wheels? You're not planning on making like a closed ecosystem?
No, not at least not at this point. We are actually, there are different ways, and there's still how would I say this? I think that there is still room for improvement or innovation in the wheels as well. It's not. I don't think that they are still working like at the level that they could. So I think that we can still bring something to that, like the whole wheel, like infrastructure and so on. But yeah, that is something for the future.
So like something that transcends direct drive. So we've gone from like gear driven to belt driven to direct drive. I suppose before we were saying like, where do you go from here? Everything is done, but maybe there's like, I don't know, super drive, like like another technology, right? Like we're just assuming that direct drive is the peak, the pinnacle of what's possible. Maybe there's a level above direct drive, and if it's called super drive, right? You heard it here first. That's all I'm going to say.
Super drive.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, one of my, I don't know if it's like a pet peeve or if it's like a little bit of OCD, but for some reason I always feel like the wheel and the wheelbase have to pair together. I don't know why. It's probably because at the moment I'm a Fanatec user for the wheelbase and the wheel, but that's because they kind of lock you in to their ecosystem. Realistically, like I can't really get a Cube Controls without a bunch of extra work for it to work with my wheelbase. I can't really go out and buy the Simucube wheel and then just slap it on here. One of the things that I do like about most other wheelbases is that for the most part, you can just get that adapter piece that is the quick release, and then you can slap any wheel on it. So when you guys eventually do make some more wheels, do you think the best route is to go one piece wheel, like everything's all included, or kind of go the route of like a build your own setup, like the button box is separate, the quick release is separate, the wheel is separate? Because it is kind of nice to be able to say, this wheel is mine and it's unique because I built it through all the parts that are available to me, instead of just like, well, I guess that one works, I'll just get that one.
That's like,
I think this comes a little bit back into what you mentioned earlier about the sim racing changing and how now the sim racing has grown a lot. It means that they are not only like the early adopters. There's a lot of like people who just want to have the ready-made product and just everything like clicks and works and so on. So, and kind of traditionally that on the market, that will be the biggest segment. So that is something that we still, even though we are not the mass production company, we still kind of need to be realistic on where the market is going and so on. So I think that what we have been doing, at least for the last year, I think that the focus was on the like commercial side when we were kind of waiting for the active pedal so we can sell it. We spend a lot of time like investigating about the customer segments and like how the sim racing has changed and what are the like new possible customers of ours and so on. So yeah, that is a balance that we kind of want to achieve. And I think that all companies should really think about this, like personally, that how much of your own brand and like own identity you're really willing to sacrifice for the customer.
Sure.
I mean, if we had asked only from our customers that what should we do next, they would say, well, do a wheel. And then we wouldn't have done the active pedal because no one can say that we need an active pedal. I mean, very few people can kind of like vision that thing that and so on. So yeah, it's to me it's a question that how much you can trust on your own instincts and how much you need to be realistic about the customer. So, and yeah, how much can you rely on that the people understand that
it's like
why you are doing this, why are we in business, what are we bringing to the world, and then then kind of attracting those people to be our customers, and then kind of compare that you're just doing like, I don't know, traditional marketing or what do you want to call it, so that you're just pushing some stuff to people that you think that they will love or like, and then they might buy your product. And that is like the, I don't know, a little bit more traditional way in my mind at least.
Yeah, it's like the old phrase: if you'd asked people what they wanted before the car was invented, they would have said a faster horse. So in the same way that, like, you know, people wouldn't have asked for a force feedback pedal because they didn't know it existed. Right?
Yeah, but I didn't think that we kind of try to be very like, I don't know, a little bit like confident on our own like expertise and our own doing and so on. Then we kind of hope maybe that people will get that, and then people will see that what we are, and you know, our like values and sustainability and stuff like that. That how like that what we represent and what the people, and we are actually doing quite a nice video on this. I'm not sure when it comes out, but yeah, it's a little bit that explains as well, because we are from Finland, and Finnish people are not traditionally very like marketing minded people. We are engineers, and we go to the basement for 2 years, and then we create a product, and then we say put it on the web store and you know, buy there. So kind of there's a lot of like cultural challenges that we have also that we need to try to fight that where we kind of land on the marketing message really.
What was it like knowing, like emotionally, what was it like knowing that you were building this force feedback pedal when you went to the expo, not the last one, but the one before? Was there a part of you walking around going, oh my God, we're going to blow everyone's minds when this comes out? Or was it like, oh my God, what if everyone's like, this is a stupid
I don't
idea?
know.
Like,
It depends on the day, the project really. I mean, it wasn't an easy project. At a certain point, we weren't even sure that if we can make it happen. I mean, there was. I remember actually it wasn't the expo. It was here in our office that when actually Tero, who also took part of the software development on this case as well. So he said at some point that now I'm confident that I can make this happen. So at that point, it was like when Tero says that, then we kind of know that we can make that happen, and because he doesn't say that too easily. So. But yeah, it was actually nice to kind of think that when we are planning everything, and we kind of do things so that we make them, and at some point we start to like a little bit, I don't know, like tease them, and then send some information to what we are doing, and then we kind of like announce something, and it's not something that we kind of reveal our product roadmap for 10 years or something like that, so like some other players are doing. So yeah.
Well, that might have ruined my next question then, which is now that the pedal is done, like, what's next?
A good question. I mean, there's a lot of like different options that what we could do, and what is the next stage. I mean, right now we are focusing still on the active pedal. The active pedal is now it's in production. That the production start has been like the easiest ever we have done. So that's like, I'm still kind of waiting for some kind of last minute catastrophe there, but yeah, for now it has been great, and I remember that at the Sim Racing Expo I promised that we will start shipping on Q1, and we will get quite near them, you know. But
just taking the video game release route where you say
2 weeks.
March, it's the last day, the last hour, the last minute, and you're like, we made it, we did it. Yeah. I promise.
Yeah, something like that. But I'm quite confident that we can. I'm not sure if we can ship all of the products out, but at least like most of them we can do, because we have already manufactured. I think that actually our front content creators were last week on the factory, so they are doing some kind of content from there as well. So it's nice to show people that how the production goes and what is the situation. Yeah, right now it looks actually very good, and to take into account that this is a very like innovative product is not that easy to kind of make sure, because it's a different thing to do like one piece or even pilot like with 20 different like basically the motors is that if you have some variance of the motors and stuff like that, then it affects the algorithms and so on. So that is all like the risky part, that if you can make sure that all of the pedals work, and so we have like very thorough testing procedure at the factory, that how each and one of them is tested with like multiple different things like test benches and so on that measure all kind of stuff that you need to measure.
Right.
So it's like very, very, very thorough testing, at least at that point. But yeah, so far it's very, very good.
So sim racing obviously grew a ton during the COVID problem. And do you see that it's slowing down a little bit? So based on the timeline, it feels like you guys kind of started maybe a little bit before or even during COVID was happening, the design of the active pedal. Do you see the excitement for the active pedal slowing down at all, just because, people are kind of going back to normal things? I mean, I'm still not quite at normal levels of activity, but we're getting there. Do you see it kind of changing the trajectory of maybe how you release products and how quickly you develop things?
Yeah, I think that the COVID actually, affected us, or I guess most sim racing companies, in two ways. It created more demand, and then it destroyed the supply chain. So that is not a good combination to have. So, but yeah, I think actually we were actually, I don't know, quite lucky, or just probably lucky to react on that. So when we see the signs and or saw the signs and see kind of, I don't know, somehow felt that this will be a big thing for the component supply, then we got a lot of parts, like components, in in big enough amount so that it didn't hit us that much.
Okay.
We were like a little bit lucky, but at some point we did run out of products, because then it kind of also increased the demand, and we didn't kind of see that so much at that point. So, and it takes like a lot of time to get the parts and so on. So it did create some kind of, we did run out for like some months, but it was still quite good compared to like some of the other players that on the sim racing market. But yeah, I think that the demand did kind of came down from that. There was like some peaks when for example, the F1 drivers started to do sim racing for like a little bit.
Yeah.
They should have done a little bit more, but then they opened the tracks again. But yeah, during that time, that the whole sim racing did have a major peak, and it came down from that peak, but nowhere near their like original level where it started. Right. So, but yeah, it's not growing that much as it were like when the COVID hit, but it's still growing.
I think it's more back to its like normal growth rate again, rather than that big massive spike, because everyone's like, well, I have to stay home, I have to do something, so I'm going to buy sim racing equipment. So I think we're still at a very good trajectory, just back to normal levels of growth, where it's like it's more sustainable at this level realistically, especially because the production and supply chain and stuff. I don't know if they'll ever recover, honestly. It just feels like it's going to become, this is just how it is now, where it takes longer to get product and stuff. But it's definitely at a probably healthier rate at the moment. So definitely more sustainable for companies like you that are trying to get product going and get things out there, Yeah,
I think it was quite easy to see from the Sim Racing Expo that there was a lot of different companies who are now kind of getting their production back in, they're releasing a lot of new products and like new wheels and stuff, new pedals and stuff like that. So there was like, you could see that there was a time when nothing really happened. There were not really like new products. Right. The companies couldn't get the supply chain working so well.
There's a little part of me that, because of the spike in growth and because it's now equaled out or equalized again, I wonder if there's going to be any of those companies. Now, I'm not wishing for any company to fail by any means, but I wonder if there's going to be some of those players who jumped into sim racing when it was experiencing that exponential growth that will eventually kind of peter out because they don't really have a passion there. They just saw money signs and they were like, oh, let's get into sim racing. And then they peter off and just kind of disappear almost. I of course hope not, because, you know, options for consumers is definitely a better thing when we have our choice of different products. But, you know, it does feel like there was a lot of stuff coming out rapid fire when we were growing like crazy. And now that we're slowed again, now that's just, we can't necessarily get a hold of all the products, but there is a massive amount of options now. There's uncontrollable amount of options.
Yeah. I think, well, if you think like how market typically works, I mean, then typically the smallest companies kind of either they are bought by bigger companies or they just, you know, fade away naturally. So that is what I would kind of expect to happen in the sim racing, as it happens on all the auto markets as well. But it's interesting. It is also kind of links a little bit how the whole sim racing is changing from like hobby into a like profession, like big business. So that is also that you can easily see that there are now like players or companies who do this for just money. Like, I mean, and that's fine. I mean, that's what
natural,
happens. And that is the mass production and so on. And then you kind of expect to get the money back there, and then you just optimize to get the profit. And if you are like, well, big companies need big profits, obviously. But you can see this from other things as well, like for example, like NASCAR and those, like how you kind of link the motorsports into sim racing, and how that interface looks like. It. I mean, for us, we can see that interface quite well. There's a lot of happening there that especially on the kind of money side, that it looks to me like the professional motorsports is now taking the sim racing. They are kind of getting their own, like how they make money, like those processes on sim racing as well. So I don't know how that goes, but you know, that's what seems to happen.
How important do you think the ESL Face It R1 tournament on the Rennsport platform is to sim racing as
that
an
is
industry?
Like I mean, I like the kind of the background idea. It looks like, well, one of the issues with sim racing is that if you think, for example, like one of the top teams there, like let's say, well, some of the top teams that want to kind of compete with each other, it's not clear that on this platform they should do it. So it's kind of good to try to kind of standardize it. That how can you say that which team is the best, basically, and then you can kind of that also affects the business model of the sim racing as an esports, that they are the prize pool and the biggest prize money and so on, and they're going to get the sponsors, and like in traditional sports, that's quite clear. You have like the championship thing, and it's like relatively easy to say that who is best in the world, for example, in javelin, whatever. But that is still something happening for sim.
That's interesting that you say that, because now that you've kind of opened that door, in a Call of Duty championship, you're all playing the exact same Call of Duty. You're playing the most recent one. That's what everyone's playing. In a Dota tournament, you're playing Dota. In the League of Legends, you're playing League of Legends. But in sim racing competitions, are you on iRacing? Are you on ACC? Are you on a modded version of AC? Are you in Race Room? What are you playing? Yeah.
Well, at Expo, it was all three. At Expo, they had iRacing, ACC, and Race Room all going on.
Yeah, which one is the best?
So is that a good thing?
Which driver is
bad thing? Yeah, so you can't have a sim racing champion.
Yeah.
You have to have an ACC champion, and then you have to have an iRacing champion, and you have a race. Because when you get to that level, I think for someone like me, racing Race Room or racing iRacing,
Oh yeah.
It's not going to make a huge difference. Whereas when you're at that level, like the way that the physics models work will affect a driver who has the most incredible muscle memory for a particular car in a particular game. So I do like the idea of having one esports platform for these tournaments to shine a light on the rest of the sim racing world. It is interesting that they launched the tournament before they launched the game. I do wonder, because, you know, originally they said that they were going to launch the game in December, and then they put out that post saying, we're really, really sorry, but stuff has happened. There's a part of me that wonders if it was almost intentional to do the esports tournament first, because now everyone thinks of Rensport as the esports platform. It wasn't a game that was, you know, it has positioned them in people's minds.
That is interesting.
Exactly how they would want to be positioned.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. You know, there has been a lot of like not all positive things about that as well, but I think that that is what sim racing kind of really needs, is something like that. But yeah, I don't know. As you know, there's like from our perspective, for example, the hardware is fixed there, and I think is it VRS or what's the company? VRS. Yeah,
the pedals will leave a VRS. Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah. So at least what we heard was that, I don't know, this was a little bit biased, but that was not the number one choice for everyone. So I don't know that, but that is still a like interesting question. Obviously, this has been the same with, for example, F1 game with Fanatec and so on. So I don't know, it might be still that you kind of need to have the hardware standardized as well. But,
yeah, you almost have to, because, you know, we'll go back to Call of Duty and Dota and stuff. Obviously, people can bring their own mouse, and they have their muscle memory for all the buttons on the mouse is memorized. You bring your own controller. Maybe it is a modded controller, because I think they're allowed to have them. But in the world of sim racing, like if I sit on my setup, I'm inherently going to race much better than if I go sit on someone else's setup, but pick the same car, the same setup and everything. You have that memory that you've built up over such a long period of time that you're going to race better. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, because does it level the playing field, or does it put more people at a disadvantage? You know, it's a hard debate on that side. So I don't know if I'd prefer them to be standardized hardware or bring your own hardware, honestly speaking.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like,
I mean,
it is.
Real world motorsport is bring your own hardware, right? like you have to build your own car. So there's an argument here to say that, like, if you know, teams could have, in the same way that F1 teams have engine suppliers, esports teams could have their sim hardware like suppliers, and that, you know, there's branding opportunities and sponsorship opportunities there. That would be kind of cool. That I had the last podcast we did was with Neville Slade from Vasaro, and we were having a conversation about how high end these rigs should be for a tournament like ESL R1, and I was saying, I think it should be kind of the consumer level stuff, so that the consumers who are watching it can relate more to what's happening. Right, that was the argument I put forward. So, like, is that standard direct drive wheel, like really kind of like common brands that sim racers could buy themselves. And Neville's argument was like, no, we should go full motion rigs with, like, you know, proper direct drive and the most advanced pedals and blah, 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 saying that there's nothing wrong with the esports tournament being considered the pinnacle, and there being this extra level of immersion, this extra level of challenge. And he also made a good point that the drivers then would be, they would all have the same difficulty in terms of adapting to a rig, because they're probably not all going to have a motion rig at home. So when you get there, you add this kind of level of like unpredictability, this additional layer of challenge. And I came away from that conversation not really knowing which side of the fence I fell on at that point.
I do.
But I do like the idea of the teams having suppliers.
I mean, if you think about the traditional motorsports again, I mean, if you think F1, it's not that close to your standard cars. I mean, it has 4 wheels, and that's pretty much it.
Really.
So that is like the pinnacle of cars. So I think I personally think that if you want to do that kind of, if you want to say that these are the fastest drivers in the world, the hardware needs to be the fastest hardware in the world. So I mean, why would you give them consumer level, let's say that consumer level hardware if they cannot perform at their best with it? I mean, if you the lap times should be like that. You need to have the fastest lap times. So, and you need to have the
That's
hardware.
a good point.
And if you have the hardware that is open, so you can bring your own hardware, at some point it will standardize to something that is the best. And it might change.
I definitely like the idea of them bringing their own hardware, because then there's never that, well, I wasn't on my stuff, so I'm not driving my best. So there's always that kind of excuse that's like, well, I didn't perform at my maximum level, that's why that guy won. Instead of like, I did the absolute best I possibly could on my stuff, on my setups, and I couldn't beat him. Hats off to him.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
it would be interesting to see like the balance of like on the stage, like you got these 2 crazy guys that are doing it in VR, and then you've got like
Gamer Muscle would still be under him with a microphone,
everyone else on the ultra wide, and then and then like if you think back to, we didn't have it so much last year, but at the expo, the 2021 expo, some of the motion rigs in that hall were ridiculous. There's no other word for them. They were like these big cages that you're going upside down, and there's going to be like one guy in the corner, like in one of these huge motion rigs racing away.
Yeah,
that would be kind of fun to watch.
It makes it faster than what, why not? It might not, but
yeah, true. So have you? A lot of the sim racing hardware companies have noticed that there are some parallels with flight simulation. So, gaming hardware as a brand, sim racing sits within, gaming hardware as a sector, sim racing sits within it. But there's some kind of synergies with flight, because there's elements of kind of force feedback, and there's the rotor pedals. Is that something that you've seen, looked at, acknowledged, thought about?
Yeah. I think that right now we are focusing full on sim racing, and that is what we are doing. I don't see that as obviously with the pedals. I mean, there's something that you could use for like certain types of flight sims as well, and even in some helicopter stuff. But yeah, we like to innovate and do new stuff. So. But right now we are focused on sim racing and doing our best there. There is still stuff to do in sim racing. So,
talking of sim racing, what do you like to race? How often?
I don't know, not that often. Not often as I like, but we do have obviously some simulators here in the office, and I try to squeeze a little bit time every now and then. But I don't know. It depends. I mean, nice. In Finland we are like rally folks, so I do like some bird now and then. But I'm a trainable driver. I cannot drive really now. We have better people, thank God, who do that.
Yeah. And what about gaming generally? Like, would you consider yourself a gamer? Do you do any other genres of games?
Kids now. So I used to play some games, but yeah, not right now. Let's say it like that. Probably at some time when I have some time, then I might do it again. But yeah, but I've sort of always been like a PC gamer.
Nice.
I did have a PS2 at some point, but that was like pretty much the only console.
Yeah. Yeah, I was growing up as a kid. I was very much a PC gamer as well. And actually, right, this is good timing, because yesterday I met the guy who founded the studio and like designed Age of Empires. Like, Yeah, that was, so I went to a talk and then I didn't really do enough research before the talk. I'm at South by Southwest in Texas at the moment. And he was talking about Age of Empires. So I basically waited afterwards. I was like,
fanboying.
Age of Empires. That was basically my childhood. And then we spoke about Age of Empires for like 20 minutes. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
oh my God, I am such a nerd. And it's fine.
You should have invited me as well. I love Age of Empires as well.
Yeah, it's such a great game. I'm always intrigued to see how much people who work in gaming do, because I feel like a lot of people will game a lot right up until the point where they start their gaming company, and then it seems to trail off. And at the moment there's like 6 of us at Gridfinder, and obviously Chris is the only one who's not in the UK, and so we're trying to find more times to just meet up outside of work rather than always meeting in a meeting. But we're trying to make a conscious decision to not meet doing sim racing, to actually meet doing other gaming, so that we don't start to like, relate
right.
work or blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's interesting to see kind of like how like working patterns can change and how gaming can be like incorporated into like
it's also interesting
culture.
to kind of think that how much it relates to the work and how much it's just like you growing up and having some other responsibilities and stuff like that, taking your time, and it other thing as well as just work. Yeah.
I haven't got kids.
Mine are
so
they're
can't
both in
relate to
high
that
school,
yet.
so they're starting driving soon, and then they'll be gone in about 4 years. So I'm on the back 9 of that journey.
Mm-hmm.
The back 9. Okay, so Hannu, we've taken up loads of your time, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us for the podcast. It's been absolutely fascinating. I think the origin story of Simucube has blown my mind. I have just one more. My final question is a question I like to ask to like CEOs and founders of sim racing companies, right? Fast forward yourself from now to 5 years time. Okay. What's the biggest difference that you see in 5 years time in sim racing? And what's the biggest difference you see in Simucube? 5
years is a long time. 5 years ago, sim racing didn't have a proper direct drive. Right there. So, that is a good question. I think that for sim racing, it will, for good and bad, it will probably become more like a business, like a business. So you need to, it's not just hobby anymore. It's just like there are people who can do well, or there already are, but not so many people who can do it as their profession and kind of live on. You don't have to have a second job or anything else. So I think, and also it's very interesting to see that how the motorsport world reacts to like all these environmental things, and do they kind of, how sim racing can kind of help with that. So do they kind of like fuse together, or do they like grow separately, and how does that go? That is like very interesting thing to see that how it pans out. So I mean, it's hard to predict future.
Right.
It's not an easy question. I just it's always interesting, people say, oh, it's Web3, it's NFTs, it's more esports focused, but I'm always interested in the hardware. Like 5 years from now, I'd love to be able to get like a
I'm pretty sure that 5 years from now, I think that still 100% of our customers are humans. So we are kind of in the interface between the PC or console and the human.
Yeah.
So I think that we will still have something to do with the humans, even in 5 years.
Right. Humans will still be sim racing in 5 years.
First.
For sure.
But Hannu, that'll do for us today. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Hopefully are you planning on going to Sim Racing Expo 2023?
Yeah, at least, somewhere. Yeah.
Nice. Well, maybe we will be able to see you there and and say hi once again, and get an on-the-spot interview, but actually record the audio this time.
Turn the mic on this time.
Right, yeah.
Small details, but we appreciate it very much, Hannu. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers before you jet?
I don't know. Keep racing.
Keep racing. There we go. The perfect ending. Thank you very much.
Keep racing. Beautiful.
Thank you. It was a true pleasure.